Imagine for a moment that you're standing at the base of a mountain. The air is dense, almost heavy with anticipation, and the sky above you is alive with the most terrifying and awe-inspiring storm you've ever witnessed. Lightning splits the heavens, striking with such force that the very ground beneath your feet shakes as though the earth itself is trembling in fear. Thunder rolls in the distance, not as a distant rumble, but as the sound of ancient power, the kind of thunder that seems to come from a time before time itself, echoing across the ages. The winds pick up, swirling around you, whipping at your clothes and hair, as if nature itself is caught in the storm. The mountain looms above, cloaked in darkness, hidden by thick clouds that writhe like smoke. You can't see what's at the top, but you know something powerful is happening up there. Suddenly, in the midst of the storm, in the middle of all that chaos, you hear it, a voice. Not just any voice, but a voice that commands the very elements around you. A voice that seems to echo from the heavens, yet feels as if it's calling to you personally, piercing through the storm, reaching deep into your soul. It's the voice of the creator of the universe, the voice that spoke the stars into existence. But here's the twist. You can't see him. You can't glimpse his face, his form, or anything that resembles what you might expect of the divine. All you can do is hear his voice. It speaks directly to you, yet it's as if the very air itself is holding back something so pure, so unapproachable, that your eyes would be blinded by it. This wasn't just a myth. This was Moses' reality. A man who had led a nation out of slavery, a man who parted the Red Sea with the power of God, a man who had witnessed miracles that defy human understanding. Yet when Moses stood before the Creator, he couldn't see his face. Why? Imagine standing in Moses' sandals for a moment. After everything he had seen, everything he had experienced, the miracles, the plagues, the deliverance from Egypt, he now stood at the foot of the mountain, desperately wanting to know more. He asked to see God's glory, to behold the fullness of the one who had called him by name, who had led him and his people through the wilderness. And God's response? You cannot see my face, for no one may see me and live. Moses, the man who had witnessed the presence of God in fire and cloud, who had received the 10 Commandments in his presence, was forbidden from seeing God's true form. But why? Why would God, the creator of the universe, reveal himself in fire, in thunder, in the storm, but not in his full glory? So if Moses didn't see God's face, what did he encounter? Was it a glimpse of God's figure? Was it a part of God that could be understood, perceived? Or was it something far beyond human comprehension, something that defied all sense and reason? As Moses stood there trembling before God, he was given a glimpse, but it wasn't his face. It wasn't a figure with eyes that could be met, a body that could be touched. Instead, Moses saw God's back, just a fleeting moment, a passing glance of his divine essence. What does this say about God's nature? Today we'll uncover the profound mystery behind Moses' encounters with God, those moments of divine revelation that leave us with more questions than answers. How did God reveal himself to Moses? And what does that mean for us today? We'll explore the deeper truths hidden in these sacred moments and how they reveal not just who God is, but how we can relate to him in a world that often seems distant from the divine. Imagine for a second, if you could stand in Moses' place, would you be ready to see God? What do you think it would be like to come face to face with the creator of the universe? Would you have the courage to look into his eyes, or would the sheer intensity of his presence overwhelm you? Moses couldn't look upon God's face, but he did speak with him intimately, powerfully. What does that tell us about our own relationship with God? Perhaps the question isn't, why can't we see God? Perhaps the question is, how do we experience him in ways that are even deeper than what our eyes can see? In the next few minutes, we'll delve into Moses' experiences and unravel the mystery of God's presence. We will uncover what Moses truly saw, and more importantly, what it means for you and me today. How can we, like Moses, encounter the living God in our lives? Is there more to God's presence than meets the eye? Stay with me, because this isn't just a history lesson. This is a journey to uncover the hidden nature of God, a revelation that might just transform how you understand God, your relationship with him, and the world around you. Let's uncover this ancient mystery through the eyes of Moses and discover how it speaks to our lives today. To begin this journey, let's first look at Moses' earliest encounter with God, a moment of divine revelation that would set the stage for everything that came afterward. Our story begins in the wilderness of Midian, a quiet and desolate place. Moses, a simple shepherd, had wandered far from Egypt, leaving behind the life he once knew. But even in this remote and lonely place, God was preparing something extraordinary for him. What Moses encountered here would change the course of history and his life forever. It was here, in the midst of this barren wilderness, that Moses saw something he couldn't explain: a bush burning with fire. But this wasn't just any ordinary fire. The flames flickered brightly, but there was something deeply strange about them. The bush itself didn't burn up. The fire, intense and alive, seemed to dance in the air, but the leaves remained unscathed, untouched. It was as though the fire had a purpose beyond simply consuming it, had a meaning. It wasn't a fire of destruction, but one of revelation. As Moses cautiously approached this strange sight, a voice broke through the crackling of the flames, calling out his name. "Moses, Moses!" Just imagine that moment. You've been living your life in solitude, and then suddenly a voice clear and commanding stops you in your tracks. A voice that knows you by name. Not just any voice, but the voice of God. And yet, in this moment of incredible intensity, something was even more extraordinary. Moses did not see God. He didn't see a form, a face, or any figure that would signify God's presence. No, instead the voice came from the midst of the fire, speaking directly to Moses but not revealing God's true form. God spoke through the fire, and that fire was a symbol of his presence, his holiness, and his power. Can you imagine standing there, hearing the voice of the creator of the universe speak your name, yet being unable to look at him? What does that say about the nature of God? Why did God choose fire as the medium through which he would speak? Why not a calm, gentle breeze or a peaceful whisper? Fire has always been a symbol of power, of purity, of transformation. In the Bible, fire often represents the holiness of God, his unapproachable nature, his all-consuming glory. Fire, in its purity, cannot be touched by human hands. It is too powerful, too intense, too holy. In many ways, fire is a perfect metaphor for God himself, alive, active, and burning with righteousness, yet something we cannot fully comprehend. God could have appeared in any form to Moses. He could have come as a majestic figure, shining with divine light. But he chose fire. Why fire? Fire is uncontainable. It cannot be tamed or controlled. It cannot be reduced to a human understanding. It burns with passion and purity. This was God revealing himself in a way that Moses, like all of humanity, could encounter but never fully understand. God wasn't just showing his power or might through fire. He was showing Moses that he was a presence that couldn't be contained in a form or an image. His true nature was beyond the limitations of human understanding. God's fire represents his holiness. In the Bible, fire often burns away the impurities and unworthy elements, leaving only what is pure. Think about that. The same fire that purifies also remains untouchable, holy, and beyond reach. In the presence of this fire, Moses was drawn closer, yet he was still kept at a distance. He could approach the bush, but he couldn't get too close. And this, in a way, reveals something profound about God's nature. God reveals himself in ways we can feel, but not always fully understand or grasp. His presence is there, but it is hidden not because he is far off, but because he is too holy for us to comprehend completely. This fire was not just a visual display, it was an invitation to Moses to draw nearer, to listen, to hear God's call, but always with the understanding that God's full glory is beyond us. Why did God choose to reveal himself through fire, through something that could not be seen or touched? It wasn't to hide from Moses, but rather to show him that God's essence is not contained in a human form. His presence is everywhere, even when it's hidden. It's beyond our senses and it moves us in ways we cannot fully explain. In our own lives, we experience something similar. We encounter God through the beauty of creation, in the stillness of prayer, in the moments when we feel His presence deeply. But we don't see God with our eyes, not in the way Moses longed to. God reveals Himself to us in glimpses, in the fire that burns but does not consume, in the voices that speak from the silence, in the moments of clarity when we feel His presence even though we can't physically see Him. It is in these moments, these fleeting glimpses, that we are reminded that God's true nature is not bound by what we see, but by how we experience Him through fire, through wind, through whispers in our hearts. And that is something Moses discovered on that day in the wilderness. So what does this encounter with the burning bush teach us about God? First, that God's presence is never far from us. His fire is always burning, always active. But it is also a reminder that His holiness is beyond us, too pure for us to fully grasp. Moses didn't see God, but he encountered Him in a powerful way, and that was enough. In the same way, we too are invited to encounter God, not with our eyes, but with our hearts, through the signs, the symbols, and the moments where His presence touches our lives. After leading the Israelites out of Egypt and parting the Red Sea, Moses found himself in a place of ultimate significance, a place that would forever alter the course of history: Mount Sinai. This was not just any mountain. It was the very mountain where God had revealed Himself to Moses before. But this time, something far greater awaited him. Mount Sinai, a place already marked by divine power, would become the setting for an encounter like no other, an encounter that would shake Moses to his core and shape the future of an entire nation. Moses had led his people across the desert, experiencing miracles and divine intervention at every turn. But now on this mountain, Moses was about to receive something far beyond what he had ever imagined: the Ten Commandments. These would be the very laws that would guide the Israelites, a set of divine instructions for living in harmony with God and with each other. But the significance of this moment was far greater than just receiving laws. It was about experiencing God's presence in a way Moses and the world had never witnessed before. As Moses ascended the mountain, a thick cloud descended upon the peak, swirling like a tempest. The sky above was no longer just darkened by the clouds. It was alive with the power of God. A storm of unparalleled magnitude enveloped the mountain, and Moses was drawn into it, step by step, as he approached the source of the divine power. The air was thick with anticipation, charged with an electric energy. Thunder rumbled like the sound of a war drum, a relentless boom that reverberated through Moses' bones. Lightning struck in rapid succession, illuminating the darkened sky in blinding flashes. The very earth seemed to tremble beneath his feet. The Israelites below, watching from a distance, could hear the deafening sound of God's voice like a trumpet blast, a sound that could not be ignored, a sound so powerful it shook the hearts of those who heard it. The people, terrified, could only feel the presence of God, but they could not see Him. It was as if the entire mountain had become one giant symbol of God's power, His righteousness, and His divine authority. Once again, Moses found himself in the presence of God, but just as before, he could not see God, not in the way that we might expect. There were no golden robes, no shining face, no visible form. Moses didn't see God's face. Instead, he experienced God's glory through nature itself, through the fire that consumed the mountain, through the smoke that enveloped it, through the thunder that shook the heavens. God spoke, but not with words that Moses could see. He spoke through symbols, the elements of nature that would reveal His presence in the most dramatic way possible. Moses wasn't just climbing a mountain, he was climbing into the very heart of the divine. God was revealing Himself in ways that Moses could feel and experience, but not fully comprehend. The storm was not just a display of power, it was a divine message. The fire, the smoke, the thunder, each of these was a sign, a symbol of God's holiness and majesty. And yet they didn't come in the form of a visible face. They came in the symbols of fire and smoke, which spoke of God's consuming purity and His overwhelming presence. God wasn't just giving Moses a law. He was showing Moses a glimpse of His glory, His power, and His majesty. Can you imagine it? Standing on that mountain, knowing you're in the presence of God, but being unable to see Him, unable to fully comprehend the depth of His being? Moses, despite being so close to God, was still kept at a distance that reminded him and us of the holiness of God. His presence is too powerful, too overwhelming for us to fully grasp. Yet it was in this moment that Moses understood something profound about God, something that would transform his life and his mission forever. God had revealed himself through fire before, in the burning bush. But now the fire was surrounding him, the smoke, the thunder, the lightning. Each element was like a page in a divine book, telling Moses something about the nature of God. God was showing Moses that he was active, not passive. He wasn't a distant God waiting for his people to find him. He was a God who moved, who acted, who commanded the very forces of nature to demonstrate his power. The fire wasn't just a metaphor for God's presence, it was his presence. The storm wasn't just an ominous event, it was God's glory breaking through the veil of the natural world. And still, Moses didn't see God's face. Why? Why did God hide his true form behind symbols? Why didn't he reveal himself fully to Moses, the man chosen to lead his people? The truth is, God's true nature is too vast, too overwhelming for us to fully comprehend. We can experience it, feel it, even encounter it in ways that change us, but we cannot see it fully. God reveals himself in the ways we need to know him, through his actions, through his power, through his creation. But the fullness of God's glory remains veiled, even from Moses. This is a reminder for all of us that God's power and presence are here, but they are not always visible. We may feel his presence in the stillness of prayer, in the beauty of creation, in the moments when we hear his voice calling us to action. But sometimes he comes to us in fire, in thunder, in ways that shake us to our core, in ways that can't be captured by our human senses. Moses experienced God through the storm, through the fire, through the smoke. He didn't see God's face, but he saw enough to know that God was with him. That's what matters. God didn't need to reveal his full form to Moses to prove his power. The fire, the smoke, the thunder were enough. And in that moment, Moses' life was changed forever, not by what he saw, but by what he felt was the presence of God in the storm, in the fire, in the elements of creation itself. So what does this encounter tell us about the way God reveals himself? And how can we, like Moses, encounter God in our own lives, even when we can't fully see him? Let's continue and explore the deeper meaning behind Moses' journey and how it connects to our own experiences of faith today. After witnessing God's power in the plagues of Egypt, the parting of the Red Sea, and the divine guidance through the wilderness, Moses had come to a point in his spiritual journey where the desire to know God more intimately had reached its peak. He had encountered God through fire, smoke, and thunder, but there remained a deep, yearning question in his heart. What is God's true nature? Who is he beyond the symbols and the signs? In Exodus 33:18, we find Moses at a critical moment in his relationship with God. Show me your glory. This bold request is not just a desire to see God's physical form, but a plea to witness God in his complete, undivided essence. Moses, having seen so many manifestations of God's power, now seeks to see the fullness of God's glory, the very heart of the divine. This moment captures the essence of Moses' spiritual longing, not just to be part of God's miraculous acts, but to truly understand and experience his presence in its fullest form. God's response to Moses is profound and somewhat startling. You cannot see my face, for no one may see me and live. These words underscore a fundamental aspect of God's nature. His glory is so intense, so pure, that it is beyond human comprehension and endurance. No human being can bear the direct exposure to the full, undiluted radiance of God's presence. God's holiness, his moral and spiritual perfection, is so overwhelming that the human condition, bound by sin and imperfection, would not survive the encounter. In this divine exchange, we see the difference between God's transcendence, his holiness, and our human limitations. God then tells Moses, I will cause all my goodness to pass before you, but you cannot see my face. The term goodness here refers to God's inherent nature, his kindness, mercy, and moral integrity. God will reveal to Moses a glimpse of his divine character, but not in its complete form. The concept of God's back being revealed, while his face is hidden, speaks to the fact that God's fullness is too majestic for human eyes to behold fully, but he still offers a partial revelation. This act of revelation is not a denial of Moses' request, but an act of divine accommodation to human fragility. Why the need for such a partial revelation? In God's divine wisdom, he chooses to reveal himself to humanity in forms that we can understand, yet that don't overwhelm our capacity to perceive or endure. This act of revealing his back rather than his face is a deliberate act of grace, allowing Moses to encounter God's presence without being consumed. God's essence is revealed progressively, not because he withholds himself, but because our human faculties cannot yet comprehend the fullness of his divine being. In theological terms, this partial revelation reveals the tension between God's transcendence, his infinite, uncontainable nature, and his immanence, his willingness to draw near to us, even in our imperfection. God, in his omnipotence and holiness, chooses to reveal aspects of himself to humanity in ways that are both profound and manageable. This is a delicate balance. God is not distant, but he is also not contained by our expectations or our understanding. To understand this dynamic fully, one must consider the biblical foundation of God's presence. Throughout the Bible, the face of God symbolizes not just his appearance, but his unmediated glory, his sovereign will, and his full moral perfection. For humanity to witness God's face directly is to be exposed to the fullness of his holiness, a holiness that no mortal can withstand. The scripture speaks repeatedly of the impossibility of humanity looking directly upon God's face. This goes beyond mere physical limitations. It speaks to the very core of our spiritual vulnerability. In contrast, when Moses saw the back of God, he was allowed a revelation that was powerful, yet not overwhelming, one that prepared him for his mission without destroying him. This serves as a profound lesson for us as believers today. The ultimate experience of God's presence comes not in the form of physical sight, but in the spiritual encounter we have with him through his word, his spirit, and his acts in our lives. The fullness of God is beyond us, yet he is fully present with us, just as he was with Moses on that mountain. Why then does God reveal himself in partial glimpses, even though his glory is veiled? The answer may lie in the relationship between God and humanity. God desires to be known, but he also desires to protect us from the full force of his glory. His nature, his beauty, and his power are so overwhelming that in his mercy, he only reveals parts of himself to us at a time. This is not a rejection, but an invitation to seek more of him, to press into the mystery of his being, even as we can never fully understand him. Just as Moses experienced God's goodness, we too experience his presence in our lives in ways that invite us to seek more. While God's face remains hidden, his presence is real, and his grace toward us is unchanging. He may not reveal his face to us in the way Moses desired, but he reveals his love, his truth, and his will, inviting us into a deeper relationship with him, where our spiritual sight is sharpened not by what we see, but by how we encounter him in faith. God's face may remain hidden for now, but he is present with us in ways that challenge, transform, and renew us. Our journey is not one of seeking to see God's face, but of seeking to know him more deeply, experiencing his goodness and grace in the everyday moments of life. And while we may never fully comprehend his nature, we can trust that his presence is with us always, guiding us, revealing his glory to us in ways that shape and mold us into the image of his Son. So what does this moment of partial revelation teach us about our walk with God? How can we, like Moses, experience the divine presence of God even when his face is hidden from view? Let's continue to explore what it means to encounter God in the ways he has chosen to reveal himself to us. Now let's pause for a moment and reflect on a crucial question. If Moses couldn't see God's face, what does that mean for us today? Does it mean we're destined to only experience God in fleeting glimpses? Or is there a way for us to know him more deeply? Moses had the privilege of encountering God in a unique and profound way, through fire, smoke, and thunder. But we too are given the opportunity to experience God's presence in our lives, though perhaps not in the same dramatic fashion. We may not see his full glory, just as Moses did not, but we can encounter his presence in ways that are deeply personal and transformative. While we may not see God in his full glory today, his presence is all around us. Just as Moses encountered God through the elements, through the fire that did not consume, through the thunder that shook the earth, through the smoke that veiled the divine, we too can encounter God through his creation. God reveals himself to us in the beauty of nature, in the calmness of a quiet morning, in the stillness of a prayer, and in the deep knowing that his Spirit is within us. Think about it. Every time we pause and reflect on the beauty of the world around us, the sunrise, the vast oceans, the mountains, the trees, the intricate design of life, we are witnessing a glimpse of God's glory. In the small moments when the world feels still, we can feel God's presence in the quiet whispers of our hearts. Through his creation, God speaks, inviting us to experience him in new ways. Moreover, God speaks to us through his word, the Bible. These pages are not just ancient writings. They are living words filled with power, truth, and wisdom that draw us closer to God's heart. The more we meditate on his word, the more we encounter his presence, as it teaches us how to live, how to love, and how to seek him in every part of our daily lives. So the real question is not why can't we see God, but how can we experience God today? The answer is through faith, by seeking him in the quiet moments, by looking for him in the beauty that surrounds us, and by drawing near to him through the power of his Spirit. We may not be able to see God's face as Moses did, but we can experience him in our hearts. We can hear his voice, not as a thunderous trumpet, but as a quiet whisper that guides our hearts, convicts our spirits, and leads us toward a deeper relationship with him. God's presence is not confined to grand encounters like those Moses had. It is available to us at every moment. Through prayer, through the moments of stillness, and through the deep longing in our hearts to know him, we encounter God. These moments, though quiet and unassuming, are as powerful as any storm on Mount Sinai. Moses' encounters with God are not just stories of the past. They are a testament to the reality of God's presence in our lives today. Even though Moses couldn't fully see God's face, he became known as the man who spoke to God face to face. Not because he physically saw God's form, but because he had a relationship with him, a deep, intimate relationship. This relationship wasn't based on physical appearances or visible manifestations. It was built on trust, obedience, and a constant seeking of God's will. And this is where the real power of Moses' encounters lies. It's not about seeing God, but about knowing him, hearing his voice, and following his lead. Just as Moses had a relationship with God that went beyond physical sight, we too are invited into a relationship with the Creator. Not in a physical sense, but in a deeply personal and spiritual way. We may not see God's face, but we can still hear his voice, feel his presence, and experience his love. God speaks to us through the quiet moments of our lives, through the beauty of creation, through the scriptures, and through the whispers of the Holy Spirit. Moses' story teaches us that we too can have a relationship with God that is rich, real, and transformative. The question is, are we seeking God as Moses did? Are we actively pursuing a relationship with him, not because we want to see him physically, but because we long to know him more deeply in our hearts? Are we allowing God to reveal himself to us, even in the smallest, most quiet ways? God is not hidden from us. He is near, and he is waiting for us to seek him with the same passion and faith that Moses exhibited. Just as Moses climbed Mount Sinai, seeking to know God more, we too are invited to seek God, to climb the spiritual mountains in our own lives, to journey into the depths of our relationship with him, and to trust that he will reveal himself to us in ways that we can understand, that we can experience, and that will change us forever. So what can we take away from Moses' encounters with God? It's not about seeing God's face. It's about knowing him, trusting him, and experiencing his presence in our lives. Moses' experience was one of profound intimacy, not because he saw God, but because he walked with God. He experienced God's glory, but we too can experience his goodness, his love, and his power in ways that transform our hearts. If Moses could encounter God through fire, thunder, and storms, imagine how we can encounter him today through the stillness, the peace, and the love he offers us in the everyday moments of our lives. The way we experience God today may be quieter, but it's no less real. And it is in those quiet moments through prayer, reflection, and connection that God draws near to us, just as he drew near to Moses. Are you ready to seek God with the same passion Moses had? Are you prepared to experience his presence in your life, not just in grand gestures, but in the everyday moments that are often the most profound? If so, I invite you to share your thoughts in the comments below. What do you think God looks like? How have you encountered him in your life? I'd love to hear your stories and reflections. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and share if this message resonated with you. Keep seeking God, keep growing in faith, and remember, he may be unseen, but he is always with us, revealing himself in ways we can understand. Until next time, God bless.